So just to be clear, I don't know when this video is going out, but it's freaking cold. It's winter here, man. So
It gets posted in the middle of summer.
Don't watch the video and go, these pussies. We're finally here, Colombo Social. I gotta say, I know nothing about Sri Lankan food.
Neither
I think
do I.
I might have had it once. That's how little I know. I'm just gonna go in open-eyed, but yeah, it'd be interesting to hear Shaun's backstory.
The most common is by far the best. Is a pan roll. It's like a Chico roll, spring roll. It's actually called Chinese rolls.
Oh really?
Yeah, because it was a take on a spring roll.
Like a spring roll.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah. We've got your really traditional hoppers. Kind of gone into it and said we're going to keep that super authentic. We've got your chicken curry. This is mum's like.
So this is her recipe.
Her recipe.
Yeah. Haven't tweaked it. Nothing. Just it is what it is.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Nice.
I'll let you explain, Kottu.
Oh no, you're the
No.
It's basically like a roti that they get, and then they cut it up into pieces, and you can add in veggies and meat and everything. They use these knives where they just kind of, and it makes this noise.
I'm guessing that.
on
You
this
heard it.
big
You heard it.
roti.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you
Yep.
heard it. So they chop it all up together and they put all the veggies.
Well, you kind of
and
like equate it to a fried rice, but you replace the rice with roti.
the roti.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
How's
about
your
that.
spice tolerance?
I'm okay. Yeah. I can deal with it. What are you concerned about for me?
I'm not okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready to do it.
I'm gonna do it.
Oh, this is good.
By who? Your parents? How do you sort of describe, I guess, childhood growing up?
Lucky, privileged. So mum's from Badaklo, so the east coast, and dad's Tamil, but born in Colombo. And water, education, food,
Stuff you take for granted.
everything. No war. It's pretty good to be in a country where there's no war.
Yep.
You know, mum was a stay-at-home mum. You know, we were lucky. We grew up in rougher areas, but to be able to have the freedom, the ability to be one of the more lucky people in the world, you know, that's kind of been an incredible privilege, and it's also compounded what you would classify as, I don't know if it's survivor's guilt or whatever you kind of label it as, but the driving force for why we do what we do now. I remember the first time I got asked it, like I went to play basketball at, I think it was Homebush Boys, right? And I walked in and these boys like, you sing this or Tamil? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know at the time, right? It was we were Sri Lankan. And mum always made sure that we never saw a difference between anybody. Or it's not even about being Sri Lankan, it's just about being a kind of migrant kid, right? And celebrating that. So mum made a very, very good point on creating this is both. In when we asked her about the menu, what like, because I got to write it in Tamil, she's like, no, I'm going to do it in Sinhalese as well. Make sure you get both. Yeah.
What role did culture play for you growing up?
I mean, it was a battle. I think it always will be a battle. Growing up in the West, where I went to Hurlston, right, boarding school. That was kids from the country. That was, you know, the kids from Mudgee all the way down to Jindabyne, wherever they were from. So we were not wanting to be Sri Lankan. Do you know what I mean? I think every migrant kid goes through this where, you know, I always say, I threw away my sandwiches because they were dal sandwiches, right? So I'm like, far out, this stinks, it's horrible. Mum would pick me up and like, oh mum, you smell like curry, I've got my friends in the car. It's embarrassing. It really was. It also was what separated us and what made us stand apart. It's what we would go home and we would have things that most other kids didn't get to have, which is a mum standing there like showing that she loves you by cooking food, or watching out for you and doing things, and just kind of, I don't know, it was beautiful. You know, I always say when you are sometimes what people want you to be as well, Sometimes you've got to be a chameleon. You've got to be white when you've got to be white. You've got to be brown when you want to be brown. People want you to play up to certain things. People want you to downplay certain things.
That's a whole stuck in between experience, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're too white for one group,
Yeah.
you're too brown for the other group.
Yeah.
But then you kind of navigate that, thinking
Yeah.
of all the challenges that brings.
Yeah.
Then as an adult, you reflect and you say, there's two cultures that I can pick and choose the best of
Yeah.
both worlds.
Yeah.
Create my own identity.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the third culture. The other complexity that I think was there was we listened to hip hop, right? Loved hip hop, and for a Sri Lankan, we're surprisingly large. We're a bit bigger dudes, and probably pretty dark as well. So you listen I always remember I'd walk down the street and someone would be like, "Oh, you N man, you N man." I'd be like, "Whoa, okay, like cool, that's what you want me to be." And then when I listen to hip hop, they're like, "Oh, you're brown, you're not black." Like I'm like, "Whoa, well, you want to call me that as a racial slur? That's cool. That's okay for you guys to do it when you want it to be like really derogatory and mean and to hurt me. But when I embrace it, then I'm not as well. But I'm not white. I'm not brown. I'm not. Oh, where are we?" So it was different, eh?
But of all industries, hospo, because hospo obviously, like you said, financially is quite different. Why did you choose this of all industries?
You're not racist when you're eating. People are they embrace it in a way that you wouldn't get when you're just having a conversation. There's a lot of similarities that can be found through food. You'll eat a dish today, you might go, "Oh, that reminds me of something that we've had in wherever." Maybe it's when you've been traveling, or maybe it's when you've been, so you can really kind of build unity and a little bit more common ground through food. But also Asian culture is hospitable. What we've done our whole lives is all we know.
It's a love language, right?
It is.
Feeding people.
100%. But also warm hospitality. I guarantee if I go into your house, going to your house, someone's going to feed me. Someone's going to talk to me. Someone's going to make sure it's okay. How are you? They'll have chats. They'll have conversations. They'll sit down with us. And that's not because we're kind of being taught hospitality. So that's default in our blood. So owning and operating restaurants just kind of made sense to us. And it was a way to bring out stories. It was a way to bring out my identity. And when I say my identity, I speak on behalf of most first-generation migrants, where that is our identity, which is not Australian, not Sri Lankan, not both, not either, stuck in between or wherever it is, and saying, well, I'm going to create something that I want to go to because I know that we want to go there. I like to have a drink, and I like hip-hop, and I like kind of funky shit, and why can't I have that? And that's what we didn't have when we were growing up, and that's what we're seeing more of. Like, again, when we look at what you want to do, and if you could map it out and have your ideal world, it's people being able to go and do what you've done because you've said it, and to probably do it better, hopefully. People like them, and they will do it better than we do. But you kind of go, it's okay.
Do you ever get pushback? Because I remember sort of even growing up, right? You sort of see these sort of modernized versions of ethnic food, and you get some people going, it's not authentic, or it shouldn't be this expensive and things like that. Do you ever get any of that sort of backlash at all?
Always.
Even to this day.
It's never going to leave. And even when you do authentic, it's not authentic enough. I remember speaking to Mum about this, and she's like, "Oh, this." I'm like, "But I don't want," and like this wasn't like really directed at it in that way. But I'm like, "I don't want you in the restaurant. It's not for you, Mum. It's not for people to come in and have traditional food. It's not. It's about showing people what we are and who we are. And that's what we want. We want people to come in here and go, oh, okay, cool. Sri Lanka doesn't have to be this stereotypical old man in a sarong making kottu. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be that. Those entrees and that starter menu is super, like, funky. And it's super different and unique, and, like, I get quite involved in that side of it. But then the curries are super authentic. We don't touch that. That's Mum's. That's what we grew up on. That's my mum's food.
The right way of cooking, right? The way that your family grew up making dal would be different to how my family made it for the north, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Going back to Ken's question about why you got into hospitality, you talked about all the intangibles that come with eating, but not the food itself. Growing up, was that what your parents and your community brought you up in relation to food as well? Because I know with South Asian communities, the first thing you do whenever someone is in need is you cook for them. When I go home, the first question my grandmother asks me is,
first before anything,
yeah, exactly. Have you eaten? What have you eaten before? How are you, or what have you been up to in this week?
Yeah, exactly.
How did you kind of grow up in a community based around that?
When we realised the power of Mum's food and her creativity around some of those dishes, that's when it became really apparent that was it. That was it for us. That's the thing.
Because you've got Played It Forward, which obviously has a very mission-based type organisation. Was the vision already there when you set up Colombo Social? Was that sort of came afterwards?
It was there always. It was there from the start. It grew its own identity very quickly after. You spoke to Aaron the other day. We're sitting around having a chat about this kind of concept that we want to bring in, which is like, okay, cool, we'll hire people seeking asylum, and then we'll feed people seeking asylum at these regular events. Maybe we'll do like a once a year pop-up, and do this big kind of like cool day where people seeking asylum from all over the world kind of come in here and kind of we'll feed them and run a big day around that. We'll plan in that. Spoke to Aaron, I'm like, mate, what do you think about this idea? He's like, Played It Forward. So we said we need to name it. He just came up with the name. He was like, oh, cool. It's kind of like this. And he's like, oh, Played It Forward. I'm like, boom, hung up the phone. Then we created that Played It Forward. That's our first kind of concept. Okay. Which was interesting. I spoke to my mate. He just like wrote it down. And he's like, oh, there's your logo. That's how it all started. And then COVID hit. That's when Played It Forward moved from the idea of a small event every now and again to a movement that we've fed 350 something thousand people in Sydney, 50,000 in Afghanistan, 60 something thousand in Sri Lanka. Wow. Like you said it, man. You said it perfectly. Your mum or whoever in your household will make sure that everyone's fed. That's how we grew up. Someone's hungry, feed them. I had no idea. If we had an idea, would we have done it? Yes. Would we have done it differently? Yes. But we closed this place down, and what is really hard to imagine when you kind of do this is you had 200 people in here on a Saturday, regularly, booked out, lines out the door, and then suddenly you come in here and all your seats are fucking up and you've got no restaurant, like shut down. And we had staff and people seeking asylum weren't given benefits. We're looking after ourselves or people that look like us and feel like us, and everyone else can go, suffer. And that was challenging. So that's where we kind of went, no, this isn't right. So we kind of used it as an employment strategy to make sure that people had living incomes. When you run a very small business, it's literally everyone's together.
It's a family, isn't it?
It is. It's so cliche, but it really is. So we looked after our people, then we looked after the community, and the only way that we knew how to do it was food. And people crying when you gave them food. I'm like, oh, it's just food. Like, it's just food. For us, it was whatever. But they're like, we haven't been eating for 3 days. Like, I remember that. That was heartbreaking.
So this was at the start of the pandemic.
No one was going into the towers. No one was going into places. No one was able to.
Growing up, were you made aware of the privilege that you had because your parents left a country like Sri Lanka, and that's what planted the seed in your mind from a young age for wanting to do something like this in your, as you became an adult?
Yeah. You're not special. You're lucky. Don't be arrogant about it. Don't think you're this. That wasn't mean. It wasn't a mean comment. But it was stay humble. It was stay real. Don't think that anything that you've done is what's created this. It's the fact that we sacrificed and made those efforts, and that you were born in the luckiest country in the world. Don't ever forget it. And that's what's made this all what we do, is because of that knowledge that if we were born there,
or stayed there,
or went back there, or whatever, our life wouldn't be what it is. No. We went when we were 5, briefly, and then went back when I was 28. That was confrontational.
Wow.
That was confrontational.
So I'm 28 now, and I am starting to get this pull to go back. I haven't been back in 20 years, and Sri Lanka has a very complicated history, and a lot of South Asian families who've left also have a very complicated relationship with the country as well. I'm reaching that point where I'm getting that pull to go back, and I'm hesitant to go back because I know it will be overwhelming. And
you got to do it.
I know I need to.
It is super confrontational. It is super real. It's the most kind of epic thing you can do. But if you want to find who you are, it's the only way to do it. If you want to find out where you're going, it's the only way to do it. It's you get treated like a rock star. The worst thing is you get treated like a rock star.
Because you're from a Western country.
It's from a Western country. It's man, like I'm not. My parents got out. Your parents didn't. That's the only thing that separates you and I. It's the only thing. Taking that lens, knowing that that's going to happen, I wasn't aware of it. You're very much a better position than I think we were to at least go in this with very eyes wide open around this and knowing it. Will allow you to have an experience that is really probably uplifting. And I think what you can do with this is realize that it's not just paying that guy $1 or whatever it is. It's how do you build a sustainable pathway and sustainable programs. What can we do around education? What can we do around the most basic need, which is food, all the way through to what can we do to create things and opportunities forever. And once you take that and you know, I would love to hear you when you get back what it was like for you. But it's listening a lot. I think when you listen, we're kind of going with this, I can fix everything kind of mentality. And I'm just going to fix it because I know what, it's not real, it's not. So they'll know the answers, they'll tell you the answers.
And I think what your mum said is so important to pass on to future generations as well. Like no matter where you had come from, like we're not special. Like we made it here because like our parents had the ability to take us out of a place and give us better opportunities. And like for us to keep passing that on to remember like for future generations as to where our roots came from. That's so important because it helps ground everyone and then brings us back to you know, for the greater good, like helping others, right?
The Indigenous culture and how they've got such still strong connection to country and strong connection to community. And that's done through storytelling, and that's done through the ability to say, we're not getting away from this. We are going to pass down that information. We are going to pass down that knowledge, and we are going to pass down that through the elders. I fear that we are moving away from it very quickly. We're moving away from having our grandparents tell us what it was like because they don't want to talk about it. Our parents don't talk about it. Our parents don't say anything about it. Our parents will tell you that you're lucky, but they won't tell you why you're lucky to the degree that we probably need to know to be able to understand what was happening and therefore to be able to communicate it so that we can live better. And I look at guys like Shakti who are doing the plays, digging deep into that. And I'm like, man, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Having an open conversation with your mum, it's phenomenal. You know, and being able to take that and be able to do that and to be able to bring it to cultures that aren't ours, but also to our own culture. That storytelling is the way that we can ensure that what has happened never happens again, but to ensure that we stay grounded, because it's really easy to get carried away with, and you know, great, the Macquarie Bank CEO is Sri Lankan. That's an amazing role model, and that's a great ambassador for that. But that needs to also have the other side of it around what has kind of happened and where are our role models and where is our culture going to be, and it's got to be all encompassing.
Yeah, I think with Shakti, it took him so long to have that conversation with his mum. But because he had that, he was able to create such a beautiful work of art. And spark so many conversations with everyone else as well. So I think with you, with what you're doing the exact same thing, just in a different
format.
role.
This is your vehicle, right?
I think we're going to, which is really, really beautiful, is that, and you guys are doing this stuff. You guys aren't going down that traditional pathways of doctor, lawyer, this. We're moving into arts.
I think Doja Cat is like partly Tamil.
Nicki Minaj is Trinidadian with ancestry from Sri Lanka.
There's Ramesh who's doing the art. There's now my cousin, Ekka's my cousin actually, by the way. And then Local Supply, the guys who are doing the cool sunglasses. We're moving into fashion, art, things like that, and becoming trendsetters, which 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we couldn't have done. We weren't doing this stuff, and now Sri Lankans are for such a small country to be represented in these ways. It allows that the voice to come out, because we probably push a little bit more into our identity, because that creates the branding, or that creates the stories in the music, or it creates the food, or it creates the art, or whatever it is. And that holistic nature of understanding is more prevalent. It's more talked about. You know, I remember someone went and saw the play and then had a conversation with their parents that they've never had before.
That's right.
That, whoa, you know what I mean? 40 years? of never asked to then go, okay, I'm going to have this difficult conversation with mum, and then you realise that his mum was like nearly murdered because that she got asked to say that whatever that line is, and she said it right because she could say it with the Sinhalese kind of accent, saved a life. Do you know what I mean? Like those conversations he'd never had his whole life.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we start all these ventures, you kind of look at it in isolation. Like Level Agent, you guys started a podcast, you're doing cool things, you're having fun. You guys started a social enterprise centered around food, looking at it in a microcosm. But if you take a step out, it has so many ripple effects. All these people doing all these cool different projects that we don't realize until sometimes a few years down the track when someone else has established themselves. They can kind of compare and say they started it because of you. So I think it's really warming and heartfelt to hear about these stories and connect this way.
I mean, obviously, also you don't have Colombo Social. You also got a whole bunch of other ventures and stuff like that. Like, how big is this thing going to get? Is there a finish line? Like, there isn't.
I'll ask people in the organisation they'll want there to finish line. I don't realise how big this has gotten. It's scary how big it is. We never started it with any kind of motive, but to just do something cool. We own and operate 9 kitchens right now. Got a workforce of over 100 people. 80 to 90% of them are people from marginalised communities. We pump out from venues that are closed to the general public, where it's people experiencing homelessness or addiction or whatever it is, and we do breakfast, lunches, dinners, 365 days a week. Good food in these places. Through the charity that does up to 3,000 meals a week. Through to the Sydney Swans, we do the food for the Sydney Swans and the players and the support staff and the coaches, and every day where the Swans feeding their athletes. All the way through to 4 restaurants, with 5 more being built as we speak. Yeah, we'll get to 14, 15 kind of venues by probably June, July, and then who knows after that. It's not. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm kind of kidding myself when I say it's not an ego thing, but there is a level of ego to it. I think everyone you do. I've got a wait list of people. We know what people are going through. We know that there's some really serious things going on in this world that are really difficult, and we know that employment actually makes a massive difference in the levels of incarceration rates, or the levels of happiness and confidence, and the levels of integration into the new country, and we know that it makes a huge impact. And we know that it bridges divides, and we know that we can kind of change and challenge the way that people think through food. So I'm going to keep doing it because I know that it's the right thing.
I was going to say, we talked about, obviously, Sri Lanka home. Would you ever do it offshore? Would you ever take it? Yeah?
Colombo Social in Colombo.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say, would it just be called social?
Nets itself out.
We've obviously had quite a heartfelt conversation. I wanted to wrap up by asking both of you, what's your comfort food? For me, it's rice, dal, spinach, and papadum.
Oh yeah?
That's the holy trinity combo for me.
Mum's chicken biryani.
Yeah?
Yep. Mum's chicken biryani, man, that's fucking off its head. So.
Nice.
Oh, I've got to think about this. Yeah, have you got one first from me? What do you think?
Mine will be similar to yours. It would be like brown or red rice with dal.
Yep.
My dad's pickles. My dad makes amazing pickles with like a fried chili.
Yep.
Papadum, and like a green of some sort.
Right.
Made in the Sri Lanka way. It's delicious.
Beautiful.
It's so hearty.
Nice. All right. Well, I think mine is my mum makes a really good maple tofu. Yeah, like a really, really good one. But it's a weird one because it's not your traditional type. Yeah. She puts sriracha in it, and it's the weirdest thing, but it's amazing. It's just bowl of rice that. If I was on death row, that's all I'd eat. That's my last meal for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I was waiting for someone to say like a meat pie or something. Something really random, but yeah. No, that's awesome.
If you guys are interested in trying out Colombo Social, head on down to Newtown. It's got heaps of great food. Oh, and more. And more. Not Newtown, and more. Same thing, right? But yeah, come support the cause. Otherwise, check us in our next video.
All right, and then also shout out to Shaun, who's in the background there. Thank you so much for hosting us. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you, guys.
See you guys on the next episode.
Bye.